Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive paradox right at the very heart of the recent military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, the entire justification for this huge military campaign was preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Yet, as the dust settles, the international intelligence and nuclear security communities are staring at a reality that directly contradicts that objective. The strikes happened, the facilities were hit, but the core threat? It's still there. So, how does that happen? Let's break it down by the numbers.
Let's dive right in. When we look at the sheer scale of the military action, the very first number that stands out is thousands. We're talking about thousands of sorties flown by military aircraft during two massive campaigns, Operation Midnight Hammer back in June 2025 and Epic Fury in February 2026. This wasn't just a quick surgical strike, This was a sustained, incredibly intense air campaign that targeted key sites like Natanz, Fordo, and several other major locations within Iran's nuclear infrastructure. And as you can imagine, flying all those thousands of sorties comes with a staggering price tag. Billions of dollars were spent executing the most sustained aerial bombardment we've actually seen since the Iraq War. We are looking at just an extraordinary expenditure of military resources, intelligence gathering, and specialized munitions, all directed at one singular strategic goal: completely dismantling a nuclear program. But did it work? Well, here is the absolute kicker. Despite those billions of dollars and thousands of sorties, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, reported that over 200 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium survived perfectly intact. All of that firepower raining down, and yet this critical stockpile of highly enriched material just sat there, completely untouched by the bombardment overhead.
Now, you might be wondering, why does 200 kilograms matter so much? Well, because that specific amount of surviving material is enough to build approximately 5 nuclear warheads. That's not some theoretical estimate. That's just the hard math of nuclear physics. The exact material required to build an arsenal of 5 weapons somehow made it through the most intense bombing campaign in modern history unscathed.
Which of course leads us to this incredibly crucial question. If the entire stated justification for this war was preventing Iran from building nuclear weapons, and the material to build 5 of them is still sitting in a bunker, what exactly was accomplished? It's a complicated question to answer, because to really understand what happened, we have to look at where this material is actually kept.
Section 1. The Unbreakable Bunker.
So, the stockpile at Isfahan isn't just underground. It is buried incredibly deep. I mean, we're talking so far down into the earth, protected by so much solid rock and reinforced concrete, that literally the largest conventional bunker buster in the United States arsenal simply cannot reach it. We are talking about the massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound precision-guided bomb designed specifically to destroy deeply buried targets. And even that monster of a bomb is not enough to breach this facility.
And this brilliantly illustrates the tactical reality of these strikes. Think of it kind of like a bank lobby versus a bank vault. The US military knew for a fact their bombs couldn't pierce the vault, that ultra-deep storage site where the 200 kilograms of uranium was actually sitting. So what did they do instead? They bombed the lobby. They targeted the tunnel entrances, hoping to collapse them and basically seal the material permanently inside the mountain. And sure, they absolutely destroyed the lobby, but the vault itself, it remained perfectly intact.
But there's a pretty glaring problem with that strategy. US intelligence now assesses that the material isn't actually permanently sealed away at all. Iran can simply dig through the rubble, they can clear out those collapsed tunnel entrances, or they can access the uranium through a smaller secondary opening. The material is still physically there, and ultimately, Iran is going to be able to reach it.
Section 2. The Enrichment Reality.
To really grasp the gravity of this, let's use an analogy. Think of enriching uranium like boiling maple sap to make maple syrup. Getting that sap up to a 60% concentration takes a massive amount of time, a ton of energy, and lots of raw material. It is undoubtedly the hardest, longest part of the whole process. But once you finally have that 60% concentration, making the final jump to 90%, which is weapons-grade material, is incredibly fast. It's exactly like that final rapid boil of the syrup. With the right centrifuges, taking that surviving 200 kilograms from 60 to 90% takes only a matter of weeks. The absolute hardest work is already completely done.
So, we really have to look at the objective trade-off of these strikes. On one hand, yes, the physical enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordo were totally destroyed. Iran's physical capacity to enrich brand new material was significantly set back, and the timeline to start from scratch is much longer now. But the critical 60% stockpile survived. And honestly, perhaps even more importantly, the thousands of scientists, engineers, and technicians who know exactly how to operate those centrifuges and weaponize fissile material, they survive too. Which brings us to a crucial point, summarized perfectly by this realization. You can bomb buildings, but you can't bomb knowledge. Remember, Iran had an active nuclear weapons program up until 2003, and they retained all of that scientific expertise. You can absolutely destroy a centrifuge manufacturing plant, but you literally cannot erase the physics and engineering knowledge from the minds of the people who built it in the first place.
Section 3. The extraction option.
So what now? Well, former President Trump has actually suggested sending U.S. Special Forces directly into Iran to seize the enriched uranium. And interestingly, there is a specific military system designed for exactly this kind of mission. It's called the Mobile Uranium Facility, or MUF for short. It's a system built specifically to package and safely remove highly enriched, dangerous material from states where security is compromised.
But if we look at the objective reality of this plan, the logistical and physical hurdles of an extraction like this are just unbelievably severe. You'd be launching a highly complex ground operation deep inside intensely hostile territory. And the special forces wouldn't just be shooting. They would have to safely handle toxic uranium hexafluoride gas, UF6 gas. It would likely require operating at multiple different sites simultaneously, all while wearing cumbersome, specialized radioactive safety gear right in the middle of a combat zone. It is an incredibly dangerous, wildly complex proposition.
Section 4. The North Korea lesson.
And the concern isn't just about the surviving uranium. It's about the mindset of the people who actually control it right now. The strikes have resulted in a new regime leadership in Iran that is more radicalized and much more closely aligned with the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. We are talking about a leadership that has literally just lived through 2 massive bombing campaigns. They are highly, highly motivated to make sure that a bombardment of their country never, ever happens again.
Analysts are really worried because Iran seems to be internalizing a very specific geopolitical lesson. Honestly, the exact same lesson that North Korea learned years ago. They are looking at the global stage right now and concluding that conventional military forces simply cannot deter a superpower, and that the only thing that actually guarantees a regime's survival is possessing a nuclear weapon. This is a massive shift, and it fundamentally alters global security for all of us.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to this powerful realization. Physics doesn't care about politics. It doesn't matter what the political intent behind the strikes was. It doesn't matter how mighty the military force applied was. The cold, physical reality is that you simply cannot bomb material that is buried deeper than your bombs can reach. The laws of physics completely protected that uranium, totally regardless of whatever policies were being debated in Washington.
Which leaves us with this final, highly provocative thought. The war destroyed facilities, sure. It set back timelines, absolutely. But it also arguably hardened their ambitions. With a surviving stockpile of 60% enriched uranium, totally intact scientific expertise, and the bitter motivation of a country that's been bombed twice, we really have to ask, did these strikes actually prevent a nuclear Iran, or did they basically guarantee one in the next 2 to 3 years? It's a huge, complex paradox, and one we will undoubtedly be watching very closely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.